Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the RENNSPORT Founders League. Today we will have a bit of an odd one out and a bit of a format change as well. But I'm not alone here today because I'm joined by Tim Ireland.
Hello.
Who
How are you doing, Lino?
Who has a new microphone as well.
I do have a new microphone. Hopefully this one won't explode within the first 10 minutes.
Let's hope so. Otherwise, you should cover your ears when you're listening to this. However, as mentioned, it will be a bit different to what we usually have in the RENNSPORT Founders League today, because we have two very good drivers in two Pragas, basically, and we have shortened the race length to 2 laps. Right now we are in qualifying, watching the number 1 car of Adrian Lunio go around the track, and Enrico Bräuniger in the second one. Both have seen good successes on the Nordschleife, I'd say. If you think back to Season 1 GT4, and we hear the rev limiter in the Praga working very well, let's say.
Yeah, it does hit the rev limiter a few times on the Nordschleife, but luckily they don't have to worry about their engine exploding. It'll be fine.
It will be fine. But yeah, they will have the opportunity to kind of have a dogfight on track, let's say. I mean, Adrian Lunio has seen some victories around this track in the Founders League. Bräuniger still has to wait for his first one, but he has had some good runs, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure, and they've both had some good racing against each other over the past weeks and months of the Founders League, so I'm sure they'll make it entertaining on track for us.
I mean, the car itself also changed. We have made some setup tweaks to the car, so some other changes, making it more pleasant to drive, I'd say.
Yeah, it's a bit less tail end happy than it used to be. It's a bit more composed, I think is as good a word as any, through the corners.
As Bräuniger puts it into the wall, as we say that. Oh, and so does Lunio. I mean, in qualifying, I guess, with only 2 cars, you will always end up on the front row, in all fairness.
That is true.
You can risk it. If they want to do that in the race, that will be a different question. But yeah, just showing off those cars here today, basically. Because I really like them. I mean, we haven't really seen a car like this in the Founders League and on the Nordschleife yet, have we?
No, it's a very different car, both in looks and how to drive, compared to the usual kind of tin tops we've had in the Founders League. So I was looking forward to seeing it race. I'm a bit disappointed with the turnout, but I'm still looking forward to seeing it race. I think that you've got a lot more options with line, because it's got a lot of downforce for a tiny little car. So you can take a lot of different lines. You can get grip in places where you couldn't in a GT3 or a GT4. I think it could be a really fun one to drive around here.
I mean, if I'm not completely off now, that's also the lightest car we have in RENNSPORT.
I think it is, you're right, yeah.
So it's... I mean, you've heard the rev limiter a couple of times. The gear ratio that this car has is of course made for smaller tracks in that regard, but I mean, especially the sector that Adrian Lunio is now entering out of the carousel, I think that will be a big blast to drive. Because you can push this car to the edge, to the limit.
And you can feel the limit quite well with it as well. As Bräuniger takes a bit of a trip into the grass. But you can feel the limit of it, and the tyres heating up, and you start to lose grip and slide around. And yeah, it's a very light car. It's got a surprising amount of downforce for a tiny little chassis. And it's okay. It's not got the major horsepower of some of the other cars like the GT3s, and definitely not the up on par with the LMDH cars. But it's a very nimble agile little machine, and it can go quicker than the GT3s at some tracks.
I mean, in general, they are fairly equal to the GT3s, and then it's a bit dependent on how many long straight sections there are. A track like Spa with its longer straights might not suit the Praga as much, but I'd say on tracks like Road Atlanta or also to a certain extent the Nürburgring, the Praga has its, well, strengths on the GT3s.
With it being a bit more aero dependent, you probably don't want to be smacking those big curves as much as you do in, especially some of the later GT3s with the different suspension setups.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's you won't really see a GT3 Praga multi-class in RENNSPORTs since the cars are so equal on pace, but so different in the way they gain the lap time. It's kind of dangerous. They do that in real life, but I mean, the circumstances are a bit different to what we have. But yeah, I mean, in real life,
They used to be the Pragas in the Brit Car series over here in the UK, but now they're all in their own series.
I mean, you might have heard of some people driving there, I guess.
No, there's nobody famous, internet famous, that you've heard of.
But here comes Adrian Lunio out of Antonius Buche to put in his quali lap time. It'll be quite interesting to see what they will put down in this session, actually.
Could see some traffic there on the road next to the Nordschleife. That's free driving confirmed in RENNSPORT.
Would be quite the thing, I guess. Adrian Lunio. Across the line, it's an 8:26. Here comes Bräuniger. I think it might be a bit slower. Actually, quite a bit. 8:46. But I mean, we've seen both drivers do quite an amount of mistakes in this session.
Yeah, they were having a bit of fun with it. It wasn't the cleanest laps.
But I mean, we've both said it. It's a two-car qualifying. You will always end up on the front row in this race. And especially since it's a rolling start, you will be side by side.
Yeah. Yeah, the real action's going to commence from turn 1, as you'd expect.
It's a car without ABS, without traction control.
Very much so. You've got to be delicate with your feet and dance on the pedals a little bit.
Well, I mean, down this turn will be quite interesting, right? I mean, it's a very hard-braking zone into turn 1.
Yeah, your tyres probably not up to temperature. Your brakes definitely won't be. So yeah, you don't want to be leaving it too late. But they are, as we've said many times before, they are racing drivers, and the old instincts kick in.
I mean, usually I'd say who's your pick, but after the last times, I'd say we should not do that here today.
No, we probably don't want to curse either of these drivers for the good of everybody. And if I pick one and you pick the other, it's just going to be hideous.
I mean, there's not much other choice, right? But here they come side by side to the start-finish line. Adrian Lunio on the outside, Enrico Bräuniger on the inside, and we go racing in the green hell with the Praga R1. Who will get the better one into turn 1? I think Enrico had actually the better start of the two, but of course Adrian Lunio on the preferred line. But it's actually Enrico Bräuniger taking the lead of this race into turn 1. And what has happened to Adrian Lunio?
Lunio had a spin into T2, unfortunately. Just lost the back end, trying to come around the corner tight.
Now, what is interesting with that of course, that mistake a bit untypical for Adrian Lunio, but I think genuinely that Lunio is a bit faster. But will it now be enough to catch Enrico Breuninger?
Yeah, I mean, that puts the pressure on Breuninger at the front there to not make mistakes, which, as you saw in qualifying, there were a few mistakes from both drivers there. But the added pressure is now on Breuninger to try and keep it clean, not do anything too stupid.
He's got 2 laps. It's almost like those, how were they called, 1-lap magic events back in the day from Gran Turismo. Just with the added difficulty of a certain Enrico Breuninger in the leading car. But here we go, onto the Nordschleife for the first time. If you are in the seat of Breuninger now, I mean, we kind of got to know him quite a bit. I went Lunio with a big drift into turn one of the Nordschleife, basically. But he now has the comfort of a 9-second lead. The race will be around 16 minutes long. I think that in the case of Enrico Breuninger, that's really helping him to get in some confidence.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically got to not lose any more than 5 seconds on the first lap. As long as he can do that, then he knows he's fairly good to go for the second lap in sim racing driver logic. So, I mean, as it is at the minute, Adrian Lunio is eating into that lead. Already taken 2.5 seconds out of him.
I mean, the thing, of course, with the rev limiter that is now very present in on the run to Schwedenkreuz, you don't gain or lose any time on those straights. So you basically have less potential time to lose out of certain corners. Because in a GT3, if you mess up the run through Flugplatz, you will lose time all the way through Schwedenkreuz into Arenberg, because you will always be slower. But in the Praga, you just hit the limit.
Yeah, true. There is like a definite speed ceiling, which can reduce your losses if you get a bad run out of the corner.
Oh, and Lunio again.
Lunio just losing the back end a little bit through that corner. And unfortunately not being able to catch it.
I mean, that's also, of course, a factor. Is the pressure... There's quite some pressure on him to catch up to Breuninger, I'd say.
There is now.
Yeah. But with each mistake you make, it gets even worse. It's like, eternal spiral downwards, unless you really get a big break.
But also, he's not really got a lot to lose at the minute. He's and everything to gain, so he might as well go all out and just see what he can make from it.
Very well so. But I mean, you could say, hey, it's only 2 cars on track. What does this race even matter? But Adrian Lunio has won 2 races in the Founders League. If Breuninger defeats Adrian Lunio in equal machinery, to quote quite a famous story for those F1 fans out there, but that's definitely a win in my books.
Well, the win is always a win, isn't it? So you can. These guys are still friendly but competitive, and I'm sure if Breuninger can come away with this, taking the checkered flag, he'll be more than happy to do that.
I wonder if we take a look at the current standings. Breuninger hasn't competed in the Founders League this time around in the last 2 races. Not sure what the points payout might be, because we didn't have a points paying race with less than, I think, 4 cars yet. I mean,
No.
it will definitely crown Lunio the champion of Season 2. But Bräuniger, might he be up for about P6?
Possibly. Yeah, I honestly don't really know what the points will be like, but yeah, I expect him to get somewhere maybe up around P6.
I mean, we will know in about 15 to 20 minutes time.
Yeah.
But of course, everything is uncertain at the moment because Lunio, while going a bit wide here, didn't lose him too much time, unfortunately. Did I say the correct one yet? I think so. But he's climbed back to 12.5 seconds. But I think he's really taking too many risks at the moment.
He is taking possibly a few too many risks there, but yeah, he's taken another 3 seconds out of Bräuniger since his last crash, so he's definitely moving. If he can keep it on the grey bit, it'd be pretty close, I think.
And I mean, he is now with the Duttinger Höhe in front of him, basically. Time to reset, to settle back into rhythm. Will be quite interesting to see. I mean, after the first spin, he had like, what was it, 10, 11 seconds? And when he spun the second time, he already gained about 2 or 3 seconds on Bräuniger.
Yeah, I think it went back to about 15 seconds. He's pulled it back to just over 9 now, so he's trucking along.
If you just can avoid these mistakes that we've seen through Hatzenbach and Brünchen and all those corners where he went right, because this car doesn't like going into the grass. Can I show you that?
No.
It might only lose you a few tenths, but on the other hand, you also don't gain anything. So it doesn't only lose you time, but it loses you even more time than it looks like on the surface.
But also, with it being a very aero-dependent car, even if Lunio does catch up to Bräuniger, then he's going to start getting dirty air. So getting past him might not be that simple.
Oh, and he loops it around once more. Turn 1 is really not the place he likes. And I think now it's the case of, can Bräuniger put in a mistake-free lap?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it wasn't a quick lap there from Bräuniger, but it was clean, which is very important. We've said that a lot of times, talking about the community races here, that sometimes just being clean is the most important thing.
I mean, it perfectly shows you the two differences in driver types that we typically see, that we typically know, with, well, Adrian Lunio being one of the very fast but sometimes inconsistent drivers. He has had some very great performances without many mistakes, but on the other hand, even the win he had last time around, the GT4, right? He also wasn't quite mistake-free, let's say, like that. But his pace was just outstanding. I mean, Pascal Jordan also had a great race, just did slightly bigger mistakes in comparison. But Bräuniger in this race, very consistent, like the likes of Dominik Ladler or Joachim Thunder.
Yeah, consistency is very much, the higher you kind of get in sim racing, consistency becomes more and more important. It's not enough to be blisteringly fast if you're turning the car around. You need to be kind of ease off a little bit and just work on the consistency. And I think Lunio's got the speed. He just maybe needs to concentrate a bit more on keeping it on the track and a bit less on trying to maximize every corner he comes to.
Reminds me a bit of Maron Benauda as well, especially in the earlier days. But I mean, doesn't mean that now Breuninger or Lunio is the better driver in any form. They're just two very different types of drivers, which is always great to have diversity in driver character. It's something that some racing series might be lacking in real life at some point, because the series doesn't really allow for it. But in this case, they can drive the way they want, and they're really doing it here.
And then sometimes you'll get a driver like Lunio who puts it all on the line, but then every now and again they'll have like a magic race where they just don't do anything wrong and they can really get to show off their pace.
I mean, he has true wins in this series, so...
Yeah.
And also very different types of cars. I think the first one was front-wheel drive. If I remember correctly, he used the Elantra. And the last time, of course, 2 weeks ago in the GT4 Audi.
And the Praga, not a car that everyone's particularly used to driving. It's not a car that we pull out very often for races. And especially with it having some setup changes just this week in the patch. So people aren't maybe as used to driving, aren't as used to driving it, and it's changed from last time they did anyway. So it's a few curveballs we've thrown at the drivers here today.
Very much so. I mean, if you are a fan of the Praga, the next 2 weeks might be a time that you will enjoy, because the Praga will return to the regular schedule.
Nice. I do like a Praga drive.
To my knowledge, because our beloved colleague Remco Mayor was very adamant that the Praga is very great at the new Krystall circuit, which has been added in the recent update as well.
That's a nice pronunciation there. I just go with Crest every time.
Yeah, I hope I didn't completely butcher it, because I have no idea if it was correct. But thought I'd try it anyway. But yeah, Crest and Praga seems to be a very fun combo. I haven't driven it too much, to be honest. Like this particular combination. But Remco is, I think, one of the most experienced drivers we have to offer. And if he says something, that's usually with a good foundation. Oh, big drift there for Lunio.
Again, Lunio's closing the gap in. It's 9 seconds again now. But Breuninger, he's not doing anything wrong. He's just staying on the track. He's keeping it clean laps. He's not got quite as many corner cut boxes as some other drivers.
Who could you mean with this?
But so yeah, he's for sure going slower, but he's keeping it clean. I mean, the gap's down to 6.5 seconds now. Lunio is reeling him in a fairly impressive pace, but there's not a lot of Nordschleife left.
But it's definitely the part of the Nordschleife where he can gain the most time.
Yeah.
And you can see he's pushing it right to the limit, but I think he's... Again, it's a similar mistake to last time, but at least he was able to not lose as much time as last time around. But he's gained 5 seconds in the last 2 sectors.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems to really have a decent flow through this part of the track. Breuninger just coming up to the mini carousel. The
3
gap
seconds.
now down to 2.5 seconds. I can see them both on track at the same time, but he's not going to make a lot up on the Dottinger.
But this exit now out of Galgenkopf, I think this will be pretty much the decider. It's 1 second between the two of them. Lunia with a rocket exit out of the Galgenkopf and now in slipstream.
Yeah, so you can see the gap is coming down very slightly.
The thing is, he's in the ref limiter. He can't go much faster.
No.
You will, of course, gain 1 or 2 kilometers per hour in the slipstream, but it's so agonizing because you could go so much faster, but you just can't. 6/10.
Is he going to make some kind of hero move coming into the last few corners?
You can see how much more aggressive he comes into. Now, it will be a drag race to the line. Lunia being very loose off the last turn, side by side. I think it's Bräuniger.
Bräuniger had it by 200ths of a second on the line. 0.024.
I gotta say, when we started the stream, we were like, yeah, I mean, 2 cars, we're just gonna try. But this was one of the most awesome finishes that I've ever seen in one of the races we have casted.
That was pretty close. You can't get much closer than that.
I mean, it was... You couldn't have even timed it if you wanted to. It was just...
That's true.
Well, I guess that concludes today's race. The difference in the end, I think, was 24 thousandths of a second. I mean, that says quite a lot, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty impressive last lap there by Lunia.
It was, but
Still a bit ragged in places, but it was quick.
I mean, in the last lap, right? We've talked about the difference in speed and consistency. Now we know what the difference is. It's 24 thousandths on the line.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I guess we see each other tomorrow, because tomorrow we will be racing the Porsche Cup car at Spa-Francorchamps in 2 races at the RENNSPORT community event. Looking forward to that. Hopefully with a few more drivers.
Yes, hopefully. I also like some Porsche Cup action, so that will be great to see. And I know some of the guys out there like Porsche Cups, so I'm sure they'll turn up for a quick battle or two.
Well, until then, have a great time, enjoy the evening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.